Welcome to the My Personal Football Coach Youth Soccer Player Development Podcast, episode 30 with John Hunter-Barrett.
Welcome to MyPersonalFootballCoach.com's Soccer Player Development Podcast. Discover all the secrets, hints and tips about soccer player development and soccer coaching from some of the leading figures in world soccer. Here's your host, Saul Isaacson-Hurst.
Hi guys, welcome back to another show. Before we announce our guest, I just want to make a big announcement. Really privileged and proud to say that My Personal Football Coach is now supporting the LA Galaxy Academy with their official homework program to support their academy boys with their ball mastery and technical development. So really proud to be working with LA Galaxy, a massive club, huge club out there in America, and so really privileged that they've chosen the My Personal Football Coach as the app to support player development. So obviously they joined Wolves as another one of our pro club partners, and obviously local grassroots clubs, amateur youth clubs around the world with the My Personal Football Coach Club partnership. So fantastic, really proud. If you're interested in how we can support your club, whatever the player's abilities, just drop me a line, drop me an email or drop me a message on social media, and we can talk about how My Personal Football Coach Club Partnership can support your club and add value to your club. Now getting into the show, really proud to have John Hunter-Barrett on the show. John's the head of coaching for the 8s to 12s at Wolverhampton Wanderers. First came across John a couple of years ago on the FA Advanced Youth Award. Immediately struck me. He's a very intelligent, eloquent guy, has a really great knowledge about the game and coaching, and so he's a really good guest. He's got lots of knowledge and information to share. So if you're interested in youth player development, particularly at the younger age groups, you're really going to enjoy this episode. A really interesting chat, definitely one of my favourites. Remember, the My Personal Football Coach app has the 5 to 7s program, the 8s to 11s program, 12 to 16, 17 plus. So we've got something for everybody. All players and all abilities will improve using this ball mastery program. And don't forget that there's a 7-day money back guarantee. So we're that confident that you're going to like it, can download it and try it for free. And if you don't like it, we'll give you your money back. So really proud how the app's developing, working with clubs, working with individuals, young players all around the world, older players of all ages and abilities. So really excited how that's coming on, and lots of new stuff to come in the future. So without further ado, let's get into the show. So John Hunter-Barrett, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
Can you just give us a little bit of a brief background just of your playing and coaching journey up to this point, please? Just very briefly, and then we can go into that.
Yeah, so no, I had a different sort of route into academy coaching to the position I'm in now. I wasn't fortunate to be a professional footballer because I had the realisation quite early on at sort of 15 years old really that I weren't going to be at the standard to be a professional footballer. So I had to identify what the closest route to being in that sort of environment was going to be. So I started as an apprentice at Walsall Football Club with a guy called Adam Davey in the community department. Sort of worked through the ranks there and started to do some work in at the time the Centre of Excellence with Mick Housel, and then sort of venturing on to undertake coaching qualifications, etc., into the Wolves environment that I'm in now.
Okay, so then just tell us about your time at Wolves, and obviously what was your first role at Wolves, and obviously tell us what you're doing now.
Yeah, so my first role at Wolves was a development centre coach. So I came into Wolves doing 1 hour a week, sort of looking after an off-site development centre, so working with the foundation phase players, 7 to 11, off-site. And then now my role is head of coaching and development for the foundation phase. So it sort of evolved really from the foundation lead, taking on a lot of coach development.
Okay, so obviously we've had coaching heads of coaching on before. We've never had a head of coaching on the foundation phase. Just tell us a little bit about that role. I mean, what's the difference between that and what you did previously as a head of foundation phase lead?
Yeah, it's a twofold position. So the first side of the position really is coach development. So just looking at how our coaches are developing alongside our playing and club philosophy. And then the other side of the role is operational. So I'm fortunate as well to see and sort of coordinate a lot of the stuff that happens off outside of the pitch, as well as what we're doing on it. So aligning our playing philosophy, making sure that the players are aware of their training program, aligning myself with the recruitment department, the sports science and analysis.
So what is the main difference between what you're doing now and what you did previously as just a foundation phase lead, do you think?
So as a foundation phase lead, you wouldn't worry too much about the coach development of the coaches within it, because that will fall under somebody else's umbrella.
So that would be normally the head of coaching would deal with everybody within the club, right? So you just
Exactly.
okay.
Yeah. Yeah. The head of coaching would deal with everybody within the club. What we do at Wolves is we dice up ours into phases. So you got Mark Campbell with the 13 to 16s, and then myself with the 7 to 12s.
Okay, and then tell us a little bit about then what the rest of the foundation phase lead looks like then, in terms of then what's the staffing like in there.
Yeah, so we're quite fortunate again. We've got Tom Maydew, who heads up our pre-academy department. So he takes care of the recruitment alongside the coaching program for the pre-academy. We've got Mark McLaren, who takes care of the coaching for our 9s and 10s in terms of a full-time member of staff. We've got Dan Watson, who takes care of our 11s and 12s program. And then both of those coaches, all three of those guys, really will feed into myself and just sort of coordinate the program and the delivery.
So how does that work then in terms? I mean, now most clubs are now going into this, going down that route where they have a lead of 9s and 10s and 11s and 12s, sort of like one person leading two age groups. How does that work in practice, and what made you go down that route?
Well, we just try to look at how is the best way to make sure that we provide quality provision across the board, alongside having somebody accountable. So traditionally, it was one person. It was the foundation lead. He was the full time staff about 5 or 6 years ago as a full time member of staff, and then working with part-time coaches really to manage the age groups. But what we looked at was how much we're actually having the boys in the program, and then having somebody who's accountable for those age groups. Because the training now is, as you're aware, from your time at sort of Tottenham and Chelsea, has grown over the last 2 or 3 years. So that's something that we looked at was to make sure that we have, like I said, somebody accountable, and just sort of a clear process of and way of working.
So how do those guys work then? For instance, if also I know Dan and Mark, two top coaches. How does that work? How do they split their time between two age groups and games and stuff like that?
Yeah. So what we'll do is we just do it based on a half season way of working. So, for example, Dan will start the season with the under 12s, especially as they're beginning their journey of 11v11 football. They're transitioning from, like we said, 9v9 to 11v11, transitioning from primary school to secondary school. So Dan will start the season with that age group, and he will end the season with the under 11s as the group that he will be working with next season. And then Mark McLaren is slightly different, because what we look at is the under 9s is a really, really important year. As you're aware, the first year in academy football. So what we look at is by signing a full-time coach for the first half of the season. That way, just ensures that they get into the right behaviours and habits as they begin their journey in academy football. And then the second half of the season, he'll flip and rotate into the under 10s. And we're quite lucky because we've got really, really good part-time coaches that are flexible to work with any age group in the foundation phase.
Okay, so then you mentioned the training time, the increasing training time. Just tell us a little bit about that. How much your boys are in the foundation phase.
Yeah, so our pre-academy boys, it's nothing too dissimilar to what other clubs are doing in terms of 2 or 3 times a week, sort of including a game, wherever that will be, really in the country or the Midlands. And then once they get into the under 9s and 10s age group, we have them roughly in about 7.5 hours a week. So they do a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Saturday, and Sunday.
So that's the 9s and 10s.
That's the 9s and 10s.
So they do Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday evening.
Yeah.
And then Saturday morning.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then our under 11s and under 12s, that's when they begin day release. So it's actually this week that our under 11s will be starting day release. So they'll be coming out for a full day with us in the academy. And those days are quite interesting because, again, it's not just about what they're doing on the pitch. It's also important about what they're doing off the pitch as well. So we're building education. That's something that we work quite closely with at Wolves Academy. There's time for analysis. There's time for strength and conditioning. There's time for technical and tactical, of course. That's what they're coming out for. And like a variety of different things.
Interesting. So just looking a bit more at the overall. I mean, look, Wolves has recently become, one of the, probably the dominant force in academy football in the Midlands. I mean, what do you put that down to?
For me, there's three big things that I think that we do really well at our football club. The first one is we have the right people. So we have a lot of good people that have the correct intentions to develop people, and that's what we're here for. Second thing is we have a challenging environment. So we always have people in the building that are challenging why we make certain decisions, whether that's players, whether that's parents, or whether that's staff that we bring in. And again, because we work across the departments in a multidisciplinary approach, that enables us to create that challenging environment where it's not necessarily the coach is king, because also what the analyst will see is looking for it. He's looking for it with a different lens. And then the third thing that we really believe in is evolving all the time. So again, moving with the times. So what separates us from other academies, what separates us from other football clubs is something that we always try to constantly assess.
And what's the ultimate ambition for the academy in the short term and the long term future?
Well, like I said, the first one is make sure we're developing good people, because not everybody's going to be a professional footballer. So it's important that we develop the person when they're coming through the door to when they leave, and then the ultimate aim is to continue to produce players for the first team that are good enough to play in the Premier League.
But I mean, how do you see? I mean, we had this conversation the other day. I mean, how do you see yourself sitting within the academy landscape nationally, if you like? I mean, let's obviously look. You've got an amazing facility. You've got one of the best facilities in the country. Now you're a Premier League team. You've got ambitious owners. I mean, what's the idea? I mean, where do you think you can take the academy?
Yeah, no, we're striving to be the best. We're striving to be the best. I mean, EPPP a couple of years ago actually ranked us in the top three in terms of what we're actually doing here at Wolves. But we actually have ambitions to be the best. So again, through our challenging environment, we're always trying to be the best, trying to recruit the best, whether that's players, whether that's staff. To keep challenging, the likes of Chelsea, the likes of Tottenham, the likes of Man City, to be the best academy in the country.
Interesting. I mean, yeah, because I know we had this conversation the other day, and it's interesting because where you sit within geographically, do you see that as an opportunity? I mean, you have, if you're talking about academies that are dominating the academy system, if you like, through maybe investment, you have maybe Man City in the north, who produce, throwing a lot of money at it, Chelsea in the south, and could you be the club in the Midlands?
That's what we're striving to be. Look, geographically where we are, smack bang in the middle of the country, enables us to recruit wider, wider than maybe a Chelsea would if you're based down south, or maybe a Man City if you're based up north. With us being in the Midlands, enables us to recruit from both. So again, we're challenging to be the best.
Do you think has your recruitment strategy changed? I mean, recently due to that. I mean, obviously, I know I worked with Joseph in the summer. In conjunction with you guys, a player you recruited from Southend. Are you trying to get players in from further afield?
Yeah, no, of course. I think that we're quite fortunate again. I think I might have mentioned earlier on in the conversation to have a schools program that we basically work with, which is again really really important to us. It's important for a number of reasons. Like I said, developing the person and the people, but also enables us to recruit a little bit better because we're able to provide education for players that are coming into our football club. So in terms of your question, has it changed or say it's evolved? We're just trying to look long term. What's best for Wolves Academy long term to be the best, and to get the best players through the door.
So tell us a little bit about your schools program then.
Yeah, so again, through each we'll be introducing the full time program. We just had to have a look at how best is it going to work for Wolves Academy. Never mind what anybody else is doing in that sense. And the best way for us to do was to establish some really good links with really good schools. So we're very fortunate to work with Thomas Telford, and we're very fortunate also to work with the likes of the Royal School, or there's different there's a variety of different partner schools that we work with, but the two biggest ones really are Thomas Telford and the Royal, and sort of with that it allows us to sort of create a flexible timetable for the boys, where they're able to come in during the mornings and then go to school in the afternoons, but also catch up with sessions that they're missing when they are here at the academy.
So what age do they start there at the school?
So we start our full-time program from under 12s. So literally their first year of secondary school. So again, with us aligning that also with Dan taking the team, having a full-time coach sort of there, enables us to sort of create, like I said, a flexible timetable that allows them to make sure that they have opportunity to develop here, but also have opportunity to catch up with their schoolwork and make sure that they don't fall behind.
So are all the under 12s in that school program then?
Not every single under 12, no, because it's an elite program. Again, similar to the background that you've come from, it is selected players that are on that program. However, there are more boys that do actually go to that school as well.
Interesting. And so how many? So for instance, the 12s then. So just tell us about their week. What would their training week be like when they're at the school?
Yeah, so their training week, again, it's like I mentioned to you before, it's flexible, it's around the individual, and making sure it fits and works for them. But if I'm looking at the general player, he'll train on a Monday evening, he'll train on a Wednesday, all day for school release. He'll come in on a Thursday evening, or he will do a Friday morning, and then again, we're flexible with the Saturdays, because again, what we try to do is make sure they have time at home or time with their families. Because one thing we actually thought about, and evaluated, was when do these boys actually have opportunity to have a lion, have a get up a little bit later in the morning rather than getting up at 6 or 7 o'clock every day of the week. So again, we're flexible with the Saturdays with the full-time players, and then obviously Sundays are compulsory because it's game day.
Interesting. Okay, and look, the way you're measured is about the players you're producing. I mean, now you're getting, you got quite prolific now in producing players for the first team and also for the England youth teams, which is a lot of academies measured. But tell us about, for instance, Morgan Gibbs White, who came through the academy, won the under-17s World Cup. He played against United the other day. I mean, tell us a bit about his development.
Yeah, so Morgan's had an interesting journey. He was, I think, on the second cohort of players really to come out on the full-time program, but it was when we actually started it, so it was towards the end of his academy journey, so to speak. The guys like Mark Campbell and Dan Watson, who've been here for a very long time, seeing him walk through the door, as under 7, under 8, and then sort of developing through the program. When he started to peak, really was around 15 years old. And again, at 15, he was training with the 18s. At 16, he was training with the 23s, and then moved very quickly to the first team to make his debut. So Morgan's had an interesting, very interesting journey. As a character, very driven, very focused, knows exactly what he wants to achieve. So again, with the ambitions at the moment of the football club, he's in the right environment.
And so just tell us a bit about then generally the philosophy of the club at the foundation phase. Tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, so at the moment, again, for us being an evolving club, what we're doing is we're actually challenging our philosophy. So we know it's working because players are being produced, but how can it be better? Is a conversation that we're actually having at the moment. So our playing philosophy, we work from 4 phases. Phase 1 being initiate the attack. So how do we build up? What's it like when our goalkeeper has the ball, or we have a throw-in or a set piece? Linking into phase two. So it's how do we finish the attack? Are we creative? How do we create chances? Phase three. So it's when the opposing keeper has the ball, or the opposition have the ball, and how do we press? Do we press? Do we delay? Again, that's the decision really the players have to make. Linking to phase four, and how we defend the goal. So each week we'll spend a week on a particular phase, and then we'll move around, because what we believe in is periodized learning for players. So rather than doing the same thing for 6 weeks, we believe in doing it in smaller chunks. So spending a week on something and then moving on and then revisiting it again, 3 to 4 weeks later is a good way for players to learn.
And I mean, what about, so for instance, the under nines and the under 12s? I mean, how are those sessions differ, if they do, or do they similar? I mean, what's the provision like for a 9-year-old compared to the 12-year-old?
Yeah. So again, at nines, again, it's a heavy ball mastery focus. So what are they like with the ball? So a lot of the practices are around the boys being on the ball. So I mentioned, for example, they come in on a Tuesday. We do a 4-5 session, and the 4-5 session is literally about the boy and the ball. So how is he developing his repetition? How is he developing his technique, his confidence, his competence on the ball? As we link to sort of the main session, it starts to be, okay, what decisions now do I have to make? So are we doing 2v1s? Are we doing 2v2s? Are we doing 4v4s? A heavy small-sided game sort of focus, with different conditions that we'll set on a practice to get a specific outcome. How does that differ to an under 12s? We start to introduce a little bit more now about team. Start to introduce a little bit more about shape, a little bit more about understanding, as they're progressing into the youth development phase, and like I said, playing 11v11 football.
Okay, interesting. And then what about, you mentioned there being creative. I mean, what's your thoughts on that? How do you get players to be creative?
Very interesting question. I think the first one is you've got to understand the player, and understand their journey, and understand why they've been recruited to come into the program. Once you've got a basis of that, I think it's a case of, for again, every club's different, and every individual's different, but what works for them. So if you're allowing the boys to demonstrate some of the techniques and the technical competencies that you've delivered to them, and allowing them to apply it in the game model, it's just checking and challenging what decisions that they're actually making. If they're making the same decision consistently wrong, then you might need to step in, and challenge them. So what did you see there? Why did you make that decision? Some players respond really well to that. Some players respond to, I'm not too sure. I'm not too sure why. So again, you might have to go in and support them that way. But like I said, everybody's different, and has a different way of developing creativity.
And tell us a little bit about like play. How what part does play in the academy there?
Yeah, a big thing that we do is we do a small-sided games night. So I mentioned the nines and tens will come in on a Wednesday. So part of that Wednesday session is the boys setting up their own pitch, is the boys picking their own teams, is the boys basically playing for the full hour, so to speak. So some boys might decide they want to do a 1v1. Some boys might decide that they want to do an 11 versus 10. Some boys might decide they want to do a 4v4. But again, we set that, well, the boys actually set that up for themselves on a Wednesday, and just play. The coaches stand back and observe, and again, just try and check and challenge some of the decisions really that the players are making after the full hour is finished.
So they'll have the carte blanche to come in and do whatever they want basically that evening.
Yeah, yeah. So we've again we've looked at it to check it's actually working, and you know, if you have the expectations sort of laid out from the beginning with the parents and everybody else that comes in, then it allows that sort of environment to actually work. If you're hoping to sort of set that environment up in your club, but you don't have the conversation with the parents and also with the boys, and also with the staff as well, then people have that expectation that, you know, my son isn't being coached, but actually he's in that environment where he's coaching himself, he's coaching his teammates. With the blending age groups as well, so we have our 8s, 9s, and 10s in on that night. It gives the opportunity for some of the older boys to develop their leadership skills, as well as developing technically because they are playing.
That's a big thing at the moment with the FA, isn't it? And about trying to get age players playing together of different age groups.
Yeah.
How have the boys responded to that?
Responded really well. I mean, it's something that we've been doing for a couple of years now. It's something also that Mark McLaren's trying to push, and Dan Watson as well in their respective cells with boys training across groups. To again to develop that leadership, to develop that social, also to develop their success and failure. To some boys, because you have some boys that are getting plenty of success sometimes in their own age group that maybe need a little bit of failure as well, to develop a different outcome. But if it's planned, it works.
I suppose that as well is that about selling to the parents. Is that why is my under 11 playing with the under 9 or 10 or something like that?
Yeah, no, absolutely. But again, if it's you have that conversation at the beginning, then it allows those sort of things to actually happen.
And then tell us a little bit about your thoughts on competitive football at the foundation phase. I mean, obviously we play in a friendly league, if you like. Well, not even a league. We play friendlies every weekend. I mean, what do you think about that? Do you think that could be improved, or how do you combat it, or how do you? I mean, there are now more competitions. I mean, do you go on tours? How do you get the balance for the boys?
Yeah, I think it comes down to your planning. So what's your planning like off season? So when the boys aren't here, how do you plan? How do you plan their year? So the way that we try to look at it is just try and find solutions to make sure that the boys have opportunity to compete and play in competition. Because if you look at a 9 or 10 year old, they do want to win. They do. They are competitive. They are driven, which is why things like 1v1 practices actually work, because you see the competition come out in them. For us, what we try to do is just look at our whole year, and just plan in and drop in tours and tournaments where we go abroad. But also, we run our own tournaments here at the academy. So we run Wolves Cups here at the academy during every single half term, and then sort of in and around that across the year. We try and get the boys away at least twice for some of the younger ones, and then some of the older boys in the phase we'll get away 4 to 5 times a year.
Interesting. So in theory, how many competitions are they playing every season? How much competitive football? Because we have the FA ones as well. During January, don't we have some futsal? There's lots of different things going on. How many things? Because I'm just thinking, because I spoke to the last episode, we had Niels Janssen on from Genk. He said maybe the boys there would do over 20 tournaments a year, and obviously there's a big culture in Europe, continental Europe, with there's Northern Europe especially, that teams travel every weekend to go and play another tournament. And I always thought that was a big advantage they had over our boys at the younger age, playing that competition football, just that game management in a competition environment. So I mean,
Yeah.
it's just, I think how do we challenge our boys to get in more environments? Well, I'm not suggesting we have a competitive league every week. I don't think that's right, but just having a balance and having a taste of both.
Yeah, I think it works both ways. For us, we try and get them at least 15, 15 to 20, including Premier League, including Wolves Cups, including international tours. Per season, different opportunities to compete, and obviously try to win. And I think it's important about coach behaviour. So what's it like when you do get success, and also thinking about what it's like when you don't maybe get the desired outcome that you want from it. So it's what I'm getting at is it's okay having a competitive environment for the players and competitive games, but the behaviour really around it is important to what sort of shapes the way that they win or the way that they lose.
Well, what is your opinion about a winning mentality, that sort of thing?
Sorry, say that again.
What is your opinion to having a winning mentality that a lot of academies have?
No, I think it's important because it's what separates sometimes a good club or a good player to a great player. So if I look at traditionally the makeup of England youth squads and the dynamics of where the players are actually coming from. They're coming from clubs who actually create that type of environment, who give the players that level of exposure. Um, so what we're finding is by giving the players that level of exposure, that level of competition, when eventually they do go into it, looking at the journey now of maybe a Morgan, or the journey now of maybe some of the other players that are about to break through into the youth team, they've had the exposure. They've had the exposure to be in competitive environments, but also the the exposure of being in competitive environments and games where the focus isn't necessarily just around solely winning the game of football. And what you'll find is if you create a situation and put them you put them in situations where it is maybe about winning and competition, then they'll do that anyway. When you're playing maybe a non-competitive fixture without you actually having to tell them that.
But I mean,
Um,
my question is, how do you approach, for instance, your weekend fixtures, your games on Sundays, the friendlies, if you like, against the other teams? What's the approach there by the coaches? Is it, I mean, I know, but how is it, in terms of how do you deal with that in a friendly, the winning and losing in that friendly environment?
Well, the focus is always around developing. The focus is always looking at what we've been working on, how do you apply it in the game model, and then evaluating the execution and delivery basically of that in the game. And consistently assessing it. So if your team is, for example, maybe won a game but not done the things that you had been working on with them throughout that week, then that wouldn't be classed as a success. If your team's won and done the things that you've asked them to do, then that's classed as a success. So the answer to your question is on a weekend when we are playing the non-competitive fixtures, the focus is around development. And then obviously if you can win the game on top of it, then obviously that's an added bonus. But that's not necessarily driven directly from the coaches.
Do you notice a different approach by different academies when you play them on Sundays in terms of that the noticeable different approach? Maybe some academies want to seem to be set up to win more, some more team based, some more individual based.
Yeah, I do. I do. If I'm being honest, I think the way that we try and look at it is what's their desired outcome. So if their focus is around winning that game, what is their desired outcome? So what type of player are they looking to produce? Are they looking to to produce players, or for their first team, or produce players for other people? So I think it's just looking at, first of all, what are their desired outcomes, and then that helps you to sort of understand how to sort of approach the game or the fixture.
I had this conversation the other day. I did a podcast and I talked about my time, for instance, when I was at Chelsea and we used to play Arsenal, and it was like a lot of people, almost overcooked that game, if you like. There was too much emotion in it. I
Yeah.
might be trying. So, what's it like when you play your Midland rivals? You play your Villas and your Birminghams and your West Broms. I mean, what is it like then? Is there like a change in approach? Did you speak to the boys differently? I mean, and then obviously, we both know working in academy football, there's pressures in terms of recruitment and being seen as being the better option than your rivals. Is that come into account as well?
I think we don't have to tell our players to behave or act any differently for those types of games, because naturally they understand the importance of a for local academy game. So, for example, if you are playing West Brom, the players understand the importance of maybe doing well in that game, because more often than not, a lot of the players will go to school with the boys from other academies, so they'll have their own little bits of rivalry going on. But in terms of our direction and our behaviours, it doesn't change for those games, because every game we're expecting, we have an expectation really of our players to do well, like I said, through the focus and what we've been looking on, and how we review it, and then also the way that they compete in the fixture.
But I was more talking about maybe like with the parents and the players, it all becomes a bit too over emotional, sometimes a bit charged, and then maybe then it becomes it can become a little bit different in an environment. So I mean, would you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think sometimes you are going to have the emotion really attached to a particular game, and but as a coach, really, it's just about managing the emotion and trying to manage it. I think um, we have a code of conduct, obviously, for the parents, regardless or irrespective of the game. And sometimes it is difficult for people to sort of adhere to that code of conduct, especially if it is a local game, because they want their boys to do well. So as a coach, really, it's just sort of managing the emotion, and almost taking away the element of oh, it isn't a local derby. We are playing Birmingham City, or we are playing West Brom, or Aston Villa, and we're playing another fixture.
What about yourself and you personally? I mean, has there ever been a time, coaching here or abroad, when you've felt that a little bit more pressure, and you've really reflected on that, thinking, wow, that was a bit of a different experience for me?
Yeah, no, of course. I think that the tournaments are a great experience, not just for the players, but also for the coaches. In terms of my personal experience of that, you do have situations sometimes where you do feel a little bit more pressure in a fixture, or in a tournament, for example, where you do have to keep checking, you do have to keep challenging. Was that the right type of behaviour in that situation? Did the players need that bit of information then? Did I give them that? If I didn't, why didn't I do that? So it's constantly sort of reflecting. Was that right in that situation? And sometimes it wasn't. Because it's development. It's development, as for the players, as well as it is for the staff.
Yeah, I always found that when I was in working in Europe on tours, it was a really different environment, and I definitely developed a lot as a coach, managing the team, managing the boys, managing myself in that competitive environment, playing against some of the biggest teams in Europe. Is there any
Yeah.
times you can reflect on that in your time abroad or in England?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. For me, it's how do you manage a team when you're playing against Barcelona? So the first thing really is it's quite difficult because um, especially for foundation phase players, or even academy players in general, automatically they're playing the badge, rather than actually playing the boy that's wearing the shirt. So sometimes it's how do you manage, and these are the questions and challenges that we've had, is how do you manage the players in those situations to actually try and compete, but also how do you manage yourself and your own behaviours, when maybe they aren't doing some of the things that you want them to do. We've all been there in a game, where sometimes it's not necessarily working to plan. More often than not, what I found is good players will always find a solution to the situation.
Interesting. I mean, I remember once being at one tournament, and I was under nine coach. I won't say which club, but the head of recruitment being sent to the stands by the referee in an under nines tournament because he kept having a go at him. I mean,
Yeah,
I don't know if you've seen anything like that. I'm sure that we never encourage any sort of that behaviour. Okay, just tell us a bit then about what was it like the different sorts of playing styles. Did you see different sorts of playing styles or players in your time in Europe? I mean, particularly talking about the foundation phase here.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I think now if you look at an Ajax, who recently seen in a tournament in Holland, um, they all their players have a really 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 big game understanding. So it was a 2007 sort of age group, and looking at those boys, I can see they spend a lot of time working around their game model. So all the players understanding sort of what's expected from them, and also what to expect from their teammates. So that was a big difference, and I think that probably came from just being in competitive situations where they have to manage the game more than just play the game. So I can see that there was really good care and consideration to all the decisions really that they were making in the game. But at the same time, I'm looking and I can still see creativity. I can still see freedom within what the players are doing. So the movements weren't necessarily all robotic. You stand there and I'll pass it to you, and when I receive it, I'm going to set you and spin. There was still a lot of autonomy for the players in the game, which for me I thought was brilliant.
So
Um,
you mentioned there. I mean, tell us a little bit about your thoughts about technical training, game based training, decision making. The debate we've had many times. about the how to best utilise unopposed work and game-based work and what effect that has on decision making.
Yeah, I think it's we've had a lot of debates about this. I think it's a combination of everything. So sometimes in the foundation phase, especially in the pre-academy and maybe the nines, they do need some isolated work. They need some isolated work to develop the technique, to develop the muscle memory on what they do, and also, like I mentioned before, confidence and competence is really important. However, doing 3 hours 3 hours 3 times a week of it um, might not always be the right thing. So I personally believe in what you do. There has to be a decision within it. So if you're doing isolated practice, however, you're still encouraging them to make a decision because you're making them think, you're making them work maybe in pairs. Um, then that's fine. And then like I said, what we try to do here at the club is blend the game based approach to manage the decisions really that the players are making on the ball.
Tell us a little bit about that then in detail.
Sorry, say that again.
Tell us a little bit about that then. How do you blend that? How does that work in practice?
Yeah. So again, what we try to do is give our coaches some autonomy. So there's not necessarily a session that will look exactly the same because players get a bit bored, and also the coaches get a little bit bored with delivering the same things over and over again. So with our ball mastery session, the 4 till 5, there'll be different challenges. For example, maybe set up across the domes. The boys are working in very small groups with quite a lot of support really from the staff in terms of mastering a technique, whether it's a technique from the app. Um, that we work with you on, or whether it's one of the club based ones that maybe we're asking the boys to be competent at doing, and then sort of moving into the main session. Like I said, we try and blend a game based approach. So a game based approach on a carousel. So you will have maybe a carousel that will have a 4v4 with a condition on the game. Um, you might have a 2v2. You might have a technical practice again where you're just getting the repetition of the technique. You might have a 1v1 session. So again, we just have a variety of different ways really that we try and encourage loads of different decisions in quick little bursts rather than doing a session for half an hour, a team based session for half an hour because it's really important about the individual at this age.
I think for me, that's the important thing, isn't it? It's about having that balance. It's about having, that game time, that game-based training, but also with that individual technical work, that individual time with the ball. That's so important. It's just about really thinking about how long to do it and when's most effective to do it. I mean, you look, as we know, we talked about the best academies in the world all doing this. Surely that's the way to go, isn't it? Just having an understanding about when and where to use it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the opposite as well is important. So I think a lot of people, a lot of clubs will know if you're coming to play a Wolves team, the Wolves team are going to work hard. But what we're talking about is obviously working clever and working smart, so to speak. And a lot of that's without the ball. So what are our reactions like when we don't have the ball? How do we try and get it back? First of all, individually, especially in the nines and tens, about how do I dominate my 1v1 battles? With and without the ball, leading into the 11s and 12s where we started to maybe think a little bit more about units and maybe how to work in pairs, or smaller groups, to incorporate the decision. So if I'm playing with you in the team and you make that decision out of possession, how does that affect the decision now that I'm going to make? Whereas maybe at nines and tens, the focus is really purely around the individual. Like I said, we're dripping in little bits with our small sided games model.
So tell us a little bit, you mentioned 1v1 there. Does that play a big part in the academy?
Absolutely massive part. It's one of the fundamental things really that we look at. How do you create for yourself or create for others, and then how do you deny the opposition?
So what does that look like in practice then in delivery?
The delivery, like I said, the boys will get opportunity to do some isolated bits. Like I said, where they're developing that technique and understanding, and when it comes to actually trialing it, we have a heavy, especially in the nines and tens, and 11s, a heavy 1v1 focus. So a lot of the sessions will be set up to create 1v1 situations. So I think often people think, 1v1 is literally me attacking you and trying to get to that goal. Like could be like that at that purest form. However, we do have practices where it's set up to create 1v1s across the pitch, whether it's in a wide zone, whether it's wide going to central. Um, it's a heavy focus around what does it look like now when I'm faced up against somebody. It might be front facing, it might be with my back to goal. Like a variety of different ways, really.
Okay, and then just a little bit about individuals within the foundation phase. How do you challenge an individual, someone who, say, for instance, someone who's an under 9 who's really, doing really really well? What are the strategies you use to challenge someone?
Yeah, so I think the obvious thing really with an academy football is we'll just put them up to challenge them, which sometimes might be the case if they're surpassing really where the level of the group, and maybe they need that next might be a social challenge, it might be a site challenge sometimes, might be a technical challenge, might be a physical one, for example. So that's the obvious one, and then the other one really is we try to sometimes put them in underloaded situations. So if you've got a boy, for example, that plays centrally, you might play him 1 versus 2 in a game, but also understand that he might not necessarily get success. So that's just one example of the ways that we try and challenge on a technical or tactical perspective, and then the social or psych it might be setting different challenges that they can actually quantify during a game, and they feel they have more of a direct focus to actually achieve a specific outcome. It might be asking them to take team talks. It might be asking them to be the captain. Again, it depends on what area in particular you are looking to maybe challenge.
Because this leads nicely into my next area. I mean, obviously, from my experience, the challenge you had was that all parents see playing up as the golden ticket, if you like. That's what everyone's aimed at, and it's sometimes how do you communicate to them that there's other ways to get those challenges out of players.
No, I think the first way really is making sure you've got a challenging group, where you don't necessarily have a clear two that are striving that far ahead of everybody else. That makes all sort of discussions very difficult. So that's the first way. Is we just try to make sure we recruit the best players. The best players locally, the best players nationally, to make sure we have those challenging groups where the boys actually feel like they're developing because they're playing around other good players. And I think the other way, I'm trying not to lose my trail of thought. Um, the other way is that constant reflection, that constant challenging in decisions, um, just to sort of ensure that they do understand that.
So tell us a bit about then your parents. I mean, what sort of strategies do you have in place to support parents when they come into the academy? Obviously, we know it's a very challenging environment, logistically and mentally. How do you help support parents on their journey?
Yeah, so the first thing they do when they come in is they'll have an induction. So you have a start of season induction, but also we're developing a new joiners induction as well. So when they do come and join the program, just getting inducted really by the relevant person across the departments to make sure that um, they understand really who to speak to for specific things, and also understand what we're trying to do with their son. And then the second one really is throughout the season we have our education and welfare department um, delivering parental workshops to the parents on positive parenting, good behaviour. We have our psychologists also deliver some workshops as well. Sort of inclusive workshops really with the parents on dealing with success and failure, also performing under pressure, just sort of linking on from our conversation we had before. And that's really how we do it. It is something that we are looking at, again, consistently looking at trying to improve and make better. Um, because the game's becoming more and more challenging. It's becoming more and more competitive. Being a Premier League club, we're talking about wanting to become one of the best academies in the country. It's going to become tougher. So that sort of high demand really is going to seek some high support.
And okay, moving on to your coaches. What do you look for when you're looking for a new coach, and how do you go about getting one and recruiting them?
Yeah, so we've actually got an advert out now at the moment for some foundation phase coaches. We're just looking for coaches to come and join our team. First thing we look at really is personality. Is so what type of personality do you have around the building and around the players? Because like I said, part of us always trying to evolve is making sure we have the right people in the building, and it's easier said than done. So like I said, we look for personality. We then look for how do you develop relationships really with people in the building. So people being players, parents, and obviously other members of staff as well. And then when you actually get an opportunity to deliver, we're looking at again how do you get your message across to the players, and it's always difficult to assess whether somebody's very very good for looking at them for an hour's work of coaching, but how do you get your message across, your desired outcomes out to the players, and then does it fit really with what we're trying to do?
And what about coach development then? How do you develop your coaches, keep them on the top of their game?
First thing is what do they want to achieve? What do they want to achieve? Where do they want to go? When you've got that understanding, um, we just try and set key areas really for them to focus on throughout the year. So what we try not to do is set 25 areas of development, for example. And just the same as it will be for players, you'll have a super strength, something that you want to consistently stay doing. And you'll have maybe one or two areas of development that you'll sort of seek support on throughout the year. So myself and Mark and also Scott Sellers will spend um, time really working with the coaches on their PDPs on sort of the areas really that they want to focus on. Um, we'll work with the analysis team as well to get them mic'd up and get sessions recorded, and then provide some feedback. But again, it's two way. So what did you think? And also what have we seen? We'll do drop in sessions as well. So sometimes they're not necessarily sort of planned in and expected. Um, where we'll go in and sort of work with the coaches. Again, just trying for them to achieve their desired outcomes in the session, but also their focus is really on what they want to improve. And then another big way really is looking at what do we have internally or externally that might help you develop your communication, for example, or help you develop your leadership. So, with your communication, do you go and work with maybe the media department for a day or for a week to help you develop that, or do you need to go off site for it? Um, we're quite good as well at Wolves with our staff CPD. So we call it the staff CPD because again we're trying to incorporate all the staff within it. Obviously, you'll have some coach specific stuff, but what we try to do is get together really each block, so each sort of every 6 weeks, really as a group of staff, and then sort of run a staff development afternoon or staff development evening, with guest speakers coming in from different industries, um, coming in to sort of share their journey or share their area of expertise, and then we just try to pick off bits that are transferable to what we're doing and in the academy.
And what about yourself? How do you develop yourself? How do you keep fresh and keep on progressing?
I've just recently enrolled on a course, a master's in sports directorship, up at Manchester Uni, and it's a really really good challenging course that speaks a lot around leadership, speaks a lot around communication, and there's a lot of challenging people, challenging staff as well, who deliver on the course. So that's how I try to keep developing. Also working with Scott and Gareth, to make sure I'm getting the best bits sort of on and off the field to sort of keep shaping my personal philosophy and keep shaping the direction really of what we're trying to do in the foundation phase.
Do you spend much time, observing the older age groups and that's old other coaches within the academy?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I think that becomes a given, because it's very difficult to have access to so many experienced and skilled people, and then never spend any time sort of working with them and observing them. Um, so again, a year or two ago, I spent quite a lot of time really working with Scott, having a look at how the under 23s sort of set up and work, which is the complete opposite end of the spectrum in terms of the foundation phase. So you're looking at 10 years down the line, so to speak, and how how that sort of environment is sort of set up. And the biggest takeaway for me on that was it's all around people. It's all around people. It's around people skills, and it's around working with your team of staff to to get the best out of the players really and give them the best opportunity to progress to the first team.
Yeah, I always enjoyed spending time watching the older boys train and play, and in first team as well. So I always thought as working the underage troops, that's the end of the journey. How do we, they're the assets the players have got to have when they get towards the end of the
Mm-hmm.
development cycle, and then the challenge is then how you're going to change your program to implement that in your within the younger age groups.
No, absolutely, absolutely. So again, another takeaway really was, especially as they start to play 11v11 and they are starting to go through a bit more physical maturation, is how do you incorporate, and this is one of the challenges really, how do you incorporate um, the work to rest ratios, for example, your pitch sizes, um, depending on where they are in terms of loading in that particular week. So all those little bits of detail really of just looking at what sort of works at the top end was looking at what's transferable to a foundation phase player. And yes, without neglecting your technical and ball mastery outcomes, which really is continuously worked on across the board. I see first team players working on their ball mastery and technique in the morning unopposed, for example, because it's really important,
And just
regardless of what level you play.
and just give us a little rough idea. What's your work week like? So, for instance, what are your daily like? Monday through to Sunday. What's your what time do you get there? What time do you leave?
So
I
it's a
mean,
lot
assuming that you have left, you do leave at some point.
well, I try to. Otherwise, my wife's not going to be very happy. My working week's quite intensive, to be fair. So I will come in on a Monday morning to make sure that my week's planned. So I know what sessions are obviously going on, what coach observations maybe need to take place, answer obviously any emails or communication, because like I said, second part of my role is operational as well, to make sure that's all aligned and in place. Um, we do have our 15-16s in on a Monday for day release, and then we have our 11s and 12s in. They come in on Monday evening. So I'll leave the training ground maybe about 8:30 on a Monday. On a Tuesday, it's our 13th, 14th day release, where again I'll come in and sort of support the delivery of that. Um,
What time do you generally arrive then in the morning?
about 8 o'clock.
8 o'clock. Okay.
Yeah, about 8 o'clock. And
So,
then
for
we
instance, then, so what time do you leave on a Tuesday?
on a Tuesday, we have our nines and tens in on the evening, so I will leave about 7:30 on a Tuesday.
Okay. Wednesday.
Wednesdays are 11s and 12s day release, so again in at 8 o'clock, and I'll have an early finish on a Wednesday, we're done by about 5:30.
Okay. Thursday. But you see where I'm going with this, obviously, right? It's just obviously
Yeah,
it's a football industry is quite unique in terms of like the intensity or the expectations. You're in there a lot. It's very demanding. So my question would be, how do you keep yourself and your coaches fresh within that environment? That's a challenge because it is, it is. I mean, people who work from outside, obviously everyone thinks it's very glamorous. It's obviously it's an amazing industry to work in, but it is really demanding. Physically, mentally. How do you keep yourself fresh because you've got to deliver and your coaches are going to deliver within that intense?
yeah, yeah. So again, Mark, Dan, and I will again spend a little bit of time really beginning of the week just making sure we plan the rest of the week, to make sure that we're not in 24/7, even though you do sort of end up being around it. I think the first thing really we always try and remind ourselves is where we are, and also the responsibility that we have. Um, Also, I think that naturally because the people we tend to employ in our environment have a really good work ethic. You end up working sort of a lot harder than maybe you should do. So the answer to that is how do we keep ourselves fresh? Just different challenges. So for example, Mark will do some work with the 13s and 14s as well. Dan will do some work with the pre-academy as well. So to keep himself sort of fresh, really, in terms of what he's doing, he will sort of manage it that way. If the lads can have a an early finish, then we'll try and give them that. And sort of manage the session sometimes with part-time staff. Um, Making sure that during unloading weeks we have an unloading week every seventh week. We try to give some of the guys some time back there with their families, and then obviously during our complete off season and downtime, where possible, really we try and get away. So you do have a bit of a fresh break. So I think when you sort of manage your own expectations and know what what your end goal is, and that helps you sort of manage, if you're scaling it backwards, manage what you're doing on a daily and sort of weekly basis.
Interesting. And then what about yourself? What's your ultimate ambition? Where would you like to go in the game?
I mean, look, I'm doing the sporting directors course now, and again that will develop me as a leader, and also help me understand some of the stuff that's maybe happening off the pitch, and then also through coaching qualifications and CPDs, making sure that I'm still developing as a coach. As a new licensed coach or an eventually forward holder, keep developing in that area. But ultimate ambition, in terms of short to medium, would be to become an academy manager.
Wow, fantastic. And then what about? I just got to ask you. Obviously, you've been using the My Personal Football Coach app for three seasons, coming through fourth season. Just tell us what sort of influence that's had, effect that's had on the academy and the boys.
I think it's just given a massive technical focus. It's given an opportunity for and visual sort of clarity, really, for the parents more so than anyone, the players and the parents. So sometimes with key skills in football clubs, there isn't really the visual aid for people to maybe work on it outside of their time here. I know they're here a lot, but ultimately you've got to do extras if you want to become a footballer and be an elite player really within the program. So I think that the app's really just given us some clarity on the technical direction, really, in terms of what we're asking our players to actually do, and also giving us a source or a platform really to hold people. Hold people to account, make it more accountable, really, on specific moves.
Fantastic. And then what's your advice be to aspiring coaches who want to get to, somewhere like you've got to in the pro game, the academy game?
I think a few things really. I think commitment's a big thing. So you've got to be willing to do stuff for nothing. So again, when I started, I'd done at least 2 seasons on Warsaw Centre of Excellence under Mikhail for nothing, without earning any sort of financial reward for it. But I was developing as a person. So that's the first thing. I think that the second thing is going to be understanding that there's an expectation from the Premier League for players to do 10,000 hours. But often I see coaches get a UEFA B or UEFA A, and then that's it. I'm in. I know everything I need to know. So actually, my advice would be to make sure that you spend time really just understanding yourself and understanding what your end goal is, um, and then making sure you match it really with the type of environment that's going to challenge you. So a lot of grassroots work that I see going on is excellent. And sometimes doesn't receive the positive sort of feedback or spotlight really that it should, because there's a lot of really really good things that's going on out there in the fields. So like I said, yeah, I think you got to serve time really as a coach, and then finally really is make sure you spend time trying to understand people, because people skills are one of the most important skills I think to have working in professional football.
Fantastic. And what about a young aspiring player who wants to get all the way and play for England and play in the Premier League like Morden, Gibbs, White?
I think having the personal drive, but also understanding that sometimes there are a number of different sort of opportunities out there. So finding the right type of club is important. Is important for you. But then, like I said, having the personal drive really to try and want to do more, to be better and to be the best, but also be committed to being the best, and not necessarily feeling comfortable, really comfortable in a football club, and then thinking that the journey's never going to end. Always got to try and achieve, once you've achieved the next goal, the next target, try and get the next one after that, plan for the next one. So again, just to summarise, and that really is, for me, it's finding the right environment for you, the right programme for you, but also making sure that you keep challenging and trying to improve.
And a little birdie tells me that you're still playing a little bit of five-a-side with some of the boys. Is that right? Are you still practicing your 1v1 skills in them games?
Trying to. trying to on a weekly basis. On a Monday night we play. Some of us we play five-a-side in a competitive league, and it's a good opportunity really to just try and down tools as such really, and just try and enjoy the game.
John, thanks very much for your time. It's been amazing. Really appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for tuning in to the MyPersonalFootballCoach.com Soccer Player Development Podcast. MyPersonalFootballCoach.com's Dynamic Ball Mastery Program is the world's leading online individual technical training program, proven and developed at the highest level in the English Premier League. Sign up now to train like the pros and take your game to the next level. Master the ball, master the game.